I'm Professor Philip Treleaven. I'm Professor of Computing at UCL, and I run a big data science centre involving UCL, Imperial and LSE. Well, this conference is all about data for policy, and data science is just changing all of the areas, whether it's the banks, retailers and also government. And they're bringing in totally new models of how to do things. Now, my particular interest is in what's called blockchain technology, which is one of these sort of highly disruptive technologies. And there are two parts of blockchain. The first is what they call distributed ledger. And this is basically a database of secured records, each uniquely identified. And the other one is called smart contracts, which are basically legal contracts that are encoded as computer programs, so they're executable. So both of these technologies are set to have an enormous impact on government. For example, the distributed ledger technology is very good for securing documents. So passports, driving license, land registry, all of the sorts of things that the government runs on is absolutely ideal for this distributed ledger technology. Longer term, the smart contract technology, where you can encode legal contracts as computer programs that are executable, is set to be enormous, but there's a lot of research to be done in this area. Let's say you think of the sort of supply chain for a private medical insurance. So the record, or the health record of the customer, would be held as a secure distributed ledger record. What the smart contract does is that every time that person sees a consultant, goes to a hospital, or needs to have the insurer pay some money, it's not a person that you need to convince, it's actually the contract executes like a computer program and pays the next person that requires paying. The interesting thing in blockchain is you've got lots of little case studies, little hotspots, and already the government is looking at actually trialling distributed ledger technology, blockchain technology, for doing things like social security payments. And fairly easy to see how this is going to work. Once you get this little demonstrator going, then you can see it rolling out to other areas. So you can expect people like the National Archives, Land Registry, to be probably also looking at the technology. And therefore, in the next couple of years, you're going to see lots of little hotspots, proof of concepts, and this kicking in. Now, obviously, the smart contract stuff, where you're codifying laws, basically, is going to take a lot longer, a lot more controversial, but you'll probably be able to piggyback on the same technology that's being used by the commercial sector. So it's probably just a case of waiting a little while for that to happen. I think the biggest advance is like to be government documents encoded as distributed ledger documents, each with an individual record, an individual identifier, encrypted, so it's very difficult to forge them. So you can see the sorts of land registry type things, as being a pretty obvious sort of solution. That's fairly easy. That probably will happen in the next 2 or 3 years. I think the big interesting one is where you start to look at, can we codify laws using this smart contract technology, and therefore not just codifying laws so that they're very precise, but actually using computer programs to check that the law is not being broken. I think it's really just automation, and at the moment the problem with legal contracts is that firstly they're not drafted very well, particularly by poorly trained lawyers. And this is what the big legal firms make their money out of, arguing, black is white. So what you're doing is you're moving it from natural language, which is ambiguous, to a notation that's more and more precise. And ultimately, you may even be able to use things like computer verification to actually verify the contract is likely to do what you intend it to do. So I think it will actually make things more efficient. I think the ethical implications will actually be quite low. And I think that really we'll get improved service through automation. I think these conferences are actually real catalysts to get change, because what you've got here, you've got technologists who probably don't understand policy, and you've got policymakers who need to know about technology. And these sort of forums are very good for actually bringing things together. We're going through a sort of tsunami or maelstrom of new technology. It's going to change the way that organisations operate, and there's going to be some huge challenges and huge disruptions in employment and such like. So conferences like this will become more and more important.